While many fear the sea for its predators, scientists view it differently. They see the ocean as a treasure trove of rare creatures and behaviors waiting to be discovered, and their research often brings them face to face with marine life in risky situations. Join us as we explore some of these remarkable encounters and reveal what happens when humans meet the mysteries of the deep. On the quiet, mist-laden shores of a small Japanese fishing village, where generations of fishermen had cast their nets and lines into the vastness of the Pacific Ocean, the morning began like any other. A crew of seasoned men prepared their vessel, the Kaijo Maru, for the day's work, eyes tired but hopeful as they pushed away from the docks. The sea was a source of life for them, a constant provider yet unpredictable. Beneath its shimmering blue skin lay unknowns that could either bless or curse a day's haul. The captain, Yamada Hiroshi, a man in his 50s whose face had been weathered by salt and sun, stood at the helm. His crew, 8 men strong, knew the rhythm of the sea like a second language, their hands instinctively checking ropes, baiting hooks, and preparing the large nets. Today they would hunt for small whales, a catch that would bring the village enough wealth to tide them through leaner months. The currents were in their favor, and the sun, though not yet risen, promised a clear day ahead. As the boat carved its way deeper into the open sea, the hum of the engine was swallowed by the vastness around them. Hours passed in quiet anticipation, the occasional splash of a line hitting the water, the only sound breaking the silence. It was mid-morning when one of the men at the stern noticed something unusual, a distant disturbance on the water's surface. A ripple, then a surge, something significant moved just beneath. Hiroshi ordered the men to prepare. The harpoons were checked, ropes coiled tightly, and the nets readied. The expectation hung heavy in the air. Whatever was out there, it was enormous. They believed it to be a small whale, perhaps a minke or a pilot whale, which were common catches for the time of year. Yet there was an unease, a silent understanding among the crew that this disturbance did not align with the typical behavior of their usual prey. As the creature surfaced closer to the boat, its true size became more apparent. It wasn't a whale. What breached the water just for a moment was the immense dorsal fin of something they couldn't quite recognize. The fin, jagged and dark, cut through the water like a knife, leaving a wide wake behind. There was an ancient quality to the creature, something primordial that sent a shiver through even the most hardened of the men. The crew hesitated, eyes wide with uncertainty, but they were fishermen. This was their livelihood, and they had seen many strange things in their time. Ignoring their instincts, they cast the nets. The chains and cables groaned under the weight as they began to haul in whatever they had captured. The fight was immense. The creature beneath the surface thrashed, tugging the boat violently from side to side. Men braced themselves against the rails, muscles straining as they pulled against the unseen force. It was a battle not just of strength but of will. Minutes turned to hours, the sun now high in the sky. Sweat poured from the fishermen, their hands blistered and raw, yet still they held on. With every surge from the creature, the boat was pulled dangerously close to capsizing. But Hiroshi barked orders, keeping the men focused. The creature's power was unlike anything they had encountered before. Its weight, its sheer mass was unfathomable, as if they had latched onto a fragment of the ocean itself. Then, with a final desperate pull, the creature surfaced fully. What emerged was something none of them had ever seen. A shark, yes, but unlike any known to man. Its skin was an eerie gray, mottled with scars and strange bioluminescent patterns that glowed faintly in the daylight. Its eyes, black and soulless, betrayed nothing but ancient hunger. The body, sleek and muscular, stretched longer than the boat itself, over 60 feet of pure, untamed power. Its jaws, filled with rows of jagged teeth, snapped at the air, dripping water and blood. The crew stood in awe and terror, frozen by the sight of this monstrous being. It was as if they had pulled a nightmare from the depths of the ocean. For a moment, the men did nothing, their minds struggling to comprehend what they had caught. This was no whale. This was something far older, far more dangerous, a relic of the deep that had never been meant to meet human eyes. Hiroshi, regaining his senses, ordered the men to secure the catch. They were not biologists, not scientists, they were fishermen. This was their bounty, their prize. But even as they worked, there was an unspoken understanding that they had trespassed into a realm that humans were never meant to touch. News spread quickly once the Kaijo Maru returned to the village. The discovery of the unknown shark, quickly dubbed Mikazuki Seimei, or crescent shark, for the crescent-shaped scar on its dorsal fin, attracted attention from all over Japan. Marine biologists arrived within days, setting up research stations near the village, eager to study the creature. It had died during the struggle with the boat, its massive heart unable to withstand the stress of capture. The scientists were astounded. This was a new species, something entirely undocumented. Its biology, they said, hinted at an evolutionary path separate from any known shark species, possibly dating back millions of years. As scientists dissected and examined the body, debates erupted. Conservationists argued that the fishing practices of the village were reckless, and that humans had no right to pull such ancient creatures from their hidden realms. They pointed to the incident as proof that the ocean still held mysteries far beyond human understanding, and that indiscriminate fishing could lead to the destruction of unknown species, never giving them a chance to be studied or preserved. The discovery of the Mikazuki Seimei sparked a global conversation about the responsibility of humans in the face of nature's vast, untamed wilderness. The village, once quiet and removed from the world's spotlight, now found itself at the center of an international debate. Some villagers, proud of their catch, saw the discovery as a testament to their skill and the sea's bounty. Others, however, felt a growing unease. The sea had always provided, yes, but now it seemed as if they had taken too much, disturbed something that was meant to remain hidden. Hiroshi, too, felt its weight. He had spent his life on the ocean, understanding its moods and rhythms, but now he questioned whether he had crossed a line that should never have been breached. As the scientists continued their work, pieces of the Mikazuki Seimei were sent to labs around the world for further study, while the villagers returned to their boats, trying to resume life as it had been before. The early morning sun cast a golden glow over the water as Kavi, a champion surfer, sat on her board, feeling the ocean's rhythm beneath her. Alone on the coast, she felt the world behind her fade into insignificance. Here, only the sea and its tides mattered. Kavi had spent her life pursuing the perfect wave, mastering balance and patience. The water was calm, almost peaceful, when something massive struck from below. The impact sent Kavi flying off her board, plunging her into the depths with such force that her breath was knocked out of her. Disoriented, she surfaced, gasping for air, her eyes scanning the water for the source of the attack. Then she saw it, a great white shark, its enormous body gliding through the water with terrifying grace. Her heart pounded as fear surged through her. She had heard the stories of surfers vanishing, their boards found splintered by a predator's bite. And now, here she was, alone with the ocean's most feared creature. Instinctively, Kavi reached for her board, but it was just out of reach. Floating, exposed, she weighed her options: swim to shore or stay still. As the shark circled her, its dorsal fin slicing the water, she braced for an attack. But it didn't come. The shark moved slowly, almost deliberately, circling her with a strange precision. Kavi, frozen in place, realized it wasn't attacking. Instead, it seemed to be assessing her. Confusion mixed with fear as she locked eyes with the predator, unsure of what would happen next. Then she felt it, a low, deep rumble in the water. It vibrated through her bones, a sound that wasn't coming from the shark. It was something else, something bigger. Kavi turned, her gaze locking on the horizon. A dark shape was moving toward her, cutting through the water with astonishing speed. At first, it looked like a wave, but soon the surface broke and she saw them. Orcas. A pod of killer whales was approaching, their sleek black and white bodies slicing through the water in perfect synchronization. They were majestic and terrifying all at once, their power palpable even from a distance. Kavi had seen orcas before, but never this close and never under these circumstances. She knew of their reputation: intelligent hunters, apex predators capable of bringing down anything in the ocean, including sharks. The shark stopped circling and turned toward the orcas, its body tense and poised. Kavi felt a flicker of understanding bloom in her mind. This wasn't just an encounter between her and the shark anymore. She was witnessing something much larger, something ancient and primal. A battle for dominance, not of hunger but of survival. The orcas closed the distance swiftly, their sleek forms breaking through the surface with each powerful movement. The shark began to move more erratically now, its path no longer the slow, controlled circle around Kavi. It darted back and forth, and for a moment, Kavi feared that the predator's panic might turn toward her. But then something extraordinary happened. The shark didn't flee, it didn't attack. It positioned itself between Kavi and the incoming pod. The great white, a creature long vilified as the villain of the seas, was not her enemy at this moment. It was something else. A protector? No, that was too simple. There was no sentiment in the shark's movements, no emotion to be found in the depths of its dark, ancient eyes. It was survival, pure and simple. The shark was positioning itself in a way that suggested it recognized Kavi as part of the immediate environment. Not prey, but not an ally either. The orcas spread out in a wide formation, circling the shark and Kavi. For what felt like an eternity, the ocean held its breath. The shark twisted and turned, wary of the orca's superior numbers and speed, while the pod of killer whales seemed to assess the situation. Kavi floated, her breath shallow, her limbs stiff with fear as the ocean's top predators faced off around her. It was not a clash of violent teeth and torn flesh, as Kavi had half expected. There was no sudden thrashing in the water, no burst of blood. Instead, there was a silent exchange of power and recognition. The orcas moved closer but did not attack. They circled the shark, gliding past with calculated precision as if testing its resolve. The shark responded by holding its ground, turning slowly to keep the pod in view but not retreating. Minutes stretched on. Kavi could feel her heartbeat slow from a frantic sprint to a steady rhythm as she watched the interplay unfold. It was as if she had stumbled upon a secret that humans were never meant to see. A balance between the ocean's greatest hunters, an unspoken code of existence that didn't need words or violence to be understood. And then, as quickly as they had come, the orcas turned and began to swim away, disappearing back into the deep. The tension in the water dissipated, the ocean returning to its natural rhythm as if nothing had ever disturbed it. The shark lingered for a few moments longer, its body still and deliberate, before it too slid beneath the surface and disappeared into the blue abyss. Kavi was left alone again, the waves gently lapping at her sides. Her body ached from the adrenaline, her muscles sore from the stillness, but her mind was racing. What had she just witnessed? This wasn't the savage, mindless violence that people often imagined when they thought of sharks and orcas. It was something much more complex, an interaction that defied easy explanation. Slowly, she paddled back to her board and climbed onto it, her breath coming in deep, measured gasps. The sun had risen higher now, its light dancing across the water. The ocean, vast and indifferent, stretched out before her, as mysterious as it had always been. But now something had shifted inside Kavi. She no longer saw the ocean's predators as simple threats. There was a more profound understanding, a recognition that they too were part of the same world she had spent her life navigating. The great white shark and the orcas weren't just killers. They were survivors like her, bound by the same ancient rhythms that governed the sea. And in that moment, Kavi felt more connected to the ocean than ever before. Saya Austin clung to the side of the research vessel, squinting into the vast blue expanse before her. The sun blazed overhead, turning the ocean into a dazzling display of fractured light. Today was like many other dives she'd made, monitoring the dying coral reefs. As a marine ecologist focused on coral bleaching, Saya had grown used to the heartbreaking sight of once vibrant reefs reduced to pale, skeletal remains, victims of warming waters and human activity. The southern reef, once a thriving underwater city teeming with life, had become her focus for months. Now it was a ghost town. The fish had mainly fled, leaving only a few resilient species struggling to survive. Saya's work, gathering crucial data, was essential for conservation efforts, but the scope of the destruction often left her questioning whether her research could make a real difference. After checking her gear, Saya slipped into the cool water, the ocean's embrace a relief from the heat. She descended the reef's eerie silence surrounding her. Bleached coral stretched out below, interspersed with rare pockets of life. A few parrotfish darted by, their once bright colors dulled in depth. Her mission today was straightforward: collect coral samples, measure water temperature, and check pH levels. Yet there was always unease. These waters were home to tiger sharks, apex predators. Though Seiya knew they rarely posed a threat unless provoked, the ocean's unpredictability always demanded vigilance. For all its beauty, the open sea commanded respect. The reef below her came into focus, a sprawling field of branching coral that had lost its color but still clung to the substrate. She swam toward the designated site and began her work, using a small tool to scrape samples from the hard coral. Her movements were deliberate and measured. She was in the zone, absorbed by the task at hand, oblivious to everything but the delicate balance of life and death playing out in the ecosystem beneath her. A sudden shift in the water's current, subtle but unmistakable, broke her concentration. Seiya froze, her senses heightened. There it was again, a ripple, a shadow cutting across the ocean floor. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, she turned her head. The tiger shark moved like a ghost, its striped body a mottled shadow gliding effortlessly through the water. Its massive form, nearly 4 meters long, undulated with terrifying grace, and its eyes, cold and calculating, locked onto her. Seiya's heart thudded in her chest. She had encountered sharks before, but none were as large or predatory as this one. Every instinct screamed at her to retreat, to swim for the surface and seek safety in the boat, but she knew better. Any sudden movement could trigger an attack. Instead, she remained still, her breaths controlled, her mind racing. The shark circled her once or twice, each pass seeming more deliberate and curious. Its large, robust body created small whirlpools that stirred the water around her, pulling her slightly off balance. She could see the scars along its flank, evidence of its life at the top of the food chain, a living testament to survival. As she hovered there, the world reduced to the slow, hypnotic movements of the shark. A strange realization dawned on her. This creature, though fearsome, was part of the delicate equilibrium she was studying. Sharks, often maligned and misunderstood, played a crucial role in the health of coral reefs. As apex predators, they regulated the populations of smaller species, preventing any one group from overgrazing the coral. Without them, the entire system could collapse. The shark made another pass, this time closer. Seiya could see its gills flare as it moved through the water, its eyes unblinking, its tail swaying with perfect rhythm. She had read enough about shark behavior to understand that this was more than curiosity. It was a test. The shark was deciding whether she was a threat or potential prey. For what felt like an eternity, Seiya remained still, her every sense attuned to the shark's movements. The ocean, once her sanctuary, now felt like a precarious battleground. The shark's presence was palpable, a reminder that the sea did not belong to her. She was a visitor here, a trespasser in an ancient, untamed world. And then, as quickly as it had appeared, the tiger shark veered off, its interest seemingly waning. With a flick of its tail, it disappeared into the blue, leaving only the faintest ripple in its wake. Seiya exhaled, her body trembling from the tension. She watched the spot where the shark had vanished, half expecting it to return. But the ocean was still once more. She waited several minutes, ensuring the predator was gone before resuming her work. But her mind was no longer on the coral samples or the data she was gathering. The encounter had shifted something inside her. As she ascended toward the surface, Seiya's thoughts raced. She knew that sharks were crucial to the health of coral reefs, but witnessing it firsthand, feeling the power and presence of such a creature, brought that reality into sharp focus. Without these apex predators, the delicate balance of the reef would tip further into decline. The sharks kept herbivorous fish populations in check, preventing them from overfeeding on the algae that competed with coral for space. Their presence was not just a sign of a healthy ecosystem. They were the keystone, holding the entire structure together. Back aboard the vessel, Seiya reviewed her findings, but her mind kept returning to the shark. It had been more than a close call. It was a reminder of the interconnection between all life in the ocean, a system so intricate and fragile that even the slightest disruption could lead to catastrophe. If sharks like the one she encountered were driven away or hunted to extinction, the reefs, already in peril, would be pushed further toward collapse. That night, as the vessel rocked gently on the waves, Seiya began drafting a new report. She would present her data on coral bleaching and highlight sharks' critical role in maintaining the health of the reefs. The ocean stretched out like a vast, dark abyss, untouched by sunlight. Aboard an advanced underwater vessel, a team of researchers prepared for a night dive, eager to study the bioluminescent creatures of the deep. Vesper, a marine biologist, Calder, a robotics technician, and Silas, an oceanic historian, had ventured into these depths before. But tonight felt different, charged with a heightened sense of anticipation. As they descended, the vessel's lights illuminated shadowy shapes drifting in the current, and soon the darkness thickened around them. The ocean came alive with glowing bursts of bioluminescence, like stars in the void. Vesper watched, captivated, as vibrant patterns of light filled the monitor while Calder adjusted the cameras to capture every mesmerizing moment. Suddenly, a violent shudder shook the vessel. The lights flickered and an alarm blared. Calder scanned the readings. Something massive was nearby and the hull was under strain. The crew exchanged uneasy glances as tension filled the air. Peering through the window, Vesper's heart raced. A vast, shadowy figure loomed in the water, larger and more graceful than anything they had seen before. The vessel shuddered again and Vesper's pulse quickened, an intuitive awareness of the predator's presence sinking in. The atmosphere in the control room thickened with fear and wonder. What lay beyond the thick glass of the observation windows was an ancient creature, one of the ocean's rarely seen guardians. The creature's skin glistened with bioluminescence, its patterns radiating in waves, illuminating the surrounding water with a ghostly light. There were not just one or two, but a whole group of these ethereal predators. They moved with an elegance that belied their size, gliding through the deep, their movements synchronized in a mesmerizing display. As Vesper documented the sharks, she noticed something strange. Their bioluminescent patterns were unlike any they had studied. It was as if the sharks were engaged in a silent conversation, their light flashing in intricate sequences, responding to one another in a dance of communication that transcended sound. Suddenly, without warning, one of the sharks surged towards the vessel, its massive jaws parting, revealing rows of sharp teeth glinting like knives. The other sharks followed, encircling the ship, their bodies twisting and turning, creating an impenetrable barrier of shadows. Vesper's heart sank. They were not merely curious. They were predators. Calder's frantic voice pierced through the chaos as he tried to regain control of the vessel, steering it away from the immediate danger. The exterior lights cast erratic shadows on the sharks, illuminating their powerful forms. The sharks began to converge, their synchronized movements reminiscent of a hunting pack intent on overwhelming the vessel. With the sharks drawing closer, Vesper's mind raced, recalling her training in deep-sea biology. The unusual light patterns flashed through her memory, and she realized that these sharks communicated not just for social interaction, but for coordinated hunting. The vessel had unwittingly intruded upon their territory during a hunting session, and now it was a target. The pressure in the control room escalated as the vessel rocked violently, metal creaking in protest against the pressure of the deep. Vesper's fingers flew over the console, activating the emergency lights in an attempt to disorient the predators. The beams of light pierced the dark waters, creating an artificial dawn within the abyss. The sharks hesitated momentarily, the sudden influx of light disrupting their formation. Vesper seized the moment, launching a sequence of pulsating lights that mimicked the sharks' bioluminescent patterns. It was a gamble, an attempt to communicate back to show that they were not a threat but merely observers of the night. For a moment, the ocean held its breath. The sharks paused, their glowing patterns flickering in response to the vessel's lights. It was a breathtaking standoff, a dance of light and shadow, predator and prey. But the moment passed too quickly. The sharks, emboldened, resumed their advance, a collective force of nature intent on reclaiming their territory. Calder, desperation etched across his face, began emergency maneuvers, swinging the vessel away from the sharks, hoping to escape their jaws. The ship swayed violently, caught in the turbulent water as the sharks darted in and out of the lights, their movements chaotic yet calculated. Vesper's heart raced as she clung to her station, each lurch of the vessel intensifying the fear that gripped her. Just when it seemed like the vessel would succumb to the relentless assault, the sharks abruptly retreated. It was as if the collective force of their bioluminescent display had decided the ship was not worth the effort. They melted back into the darkness, their ethereal glow fading into the deep, leaving the vessel trembling and adrift in the silence that followed. The crew sat in stunned silence, the echoes of their heartbeats reverberating through the vessel. The control room was bathed in a cold blue light, the bioluminescent organisms outside flickering in the distance as if cheering the researchers' survival. The sharks had vanished into the abyss, leaving only the memory of their breathtaking power and beauty behind. In the aftermath, as they began their ascent back to the surface, Vesper felt a mix of exhilaration and sorrow. The encounter had provided insights into a world they had only started to understand. Yet it also reminded her of the delicate balance of existence in the depths of the ocean. The dance of bioluminescence had revealed not only the secrets of communication among the creatures of the deep, but also the fragility of life in an unforgiving environment. As they broke the surface, the dawn broke on the horizon, bathing the ocean in warm hues of orange and gold. The research vessel, though shaken, was a testament to their resilience and the mysteries that lay beneath the waves, waiting to be discovered. Vesper, Calder, and Silas would return to the depths, armed with newfound knowledge and respect for the guardians of the deep, ready to unveil the secrets that danced in the dark. Dr. Leora Sten had spent years studying the complex behaviors of sharks. Her fascination with these ancient predators began during her childhood along the rugged coastline of her native Norway, where powerful creatures ruled the waters. As a behavioral scientist, she dedicated her career to decoding their silent language, aiming to bridge the gap between humans and one of the ocean's most misunderstood inhabitants. Leora's breakthrough had come in the form of an intricate system for interpreting shark body language, allowing for safer interactions between humans and sharks. Months of research and countless hours spent observing sharks in their natural habitat had culminated in her newest study. She had crafted a method to communicate non-invasively with the creatures, relying on subtle signals and movements. Now, her findings were to be put to the ultimate test in the turquoise waters of the Bahamas, an area teeming with marine life but also notorious for shark encounters. Leora felt both excitement and anxiety as she prepared for the expedition. The opportunity to apply her research in the field was exhilarating, but the stakes were high, especially for the diver she was tasked with guiding. The day began with the sun piercing through the morning fog, casting a golden glow on the surface of the water. Leora stood at the edge of the boat, equipped with her research notes, a dive mask, and her heart pounding in anticipation. Around her, the crew set up the equipment, unaware of the looming danger that would soon unfold. After a brief briefing, the team began their descent into the deep blue. Leora was well aware that the tranquil beauty of the ocean could quickly shift to chaos. Her body language training kicked in as she watched the water around her, scanning for signs of distress or aggression in the sharks that roamed beneath the surface. As she descended, the sunlight danced on the corals and sea fans, creating an ethereal spectacle. It was a world alive with color and movement, a stark contrast to the tension bubbling beneath. Once they reached the bottom, Leora initiated a series of movements she had practiced. Slow, fluid motions are meant to convey peace and curiosity rather than fear or aggression. As expected, a few reef sharks began to appear, their sleek bodies gliding through the water, seemingly intrigued by the new arrivals. Leora felt a sense of accomplishment. Her methods were working. The sharks swam close but displayed signs of calmness, their fins relaxed and bodies non-threatening. However, her focus quickly shifted when she noticed a diver, Brout, lagging. He appeared anxious, thrashing slightly in the water as he tried to adjust his equipment. Leora's instincts kicked in. She could see the flicker of panic in his movements. He was not following her lead, and had unwittingly drawn attention from a nearby nurse shark, which swam closer, drawn by the disturbance. Leora's heart raced. She signaled to Brout to remain calm, employing a series of gestures that communicated the need for tranquility. But as she approached him, the nurse shark circled, its demeanor shifting. The water, once calm, was now charged with tension. The creature's body language began to change. Its movements became sharper and more erratic. Brout's panic only intensified, causing him to kick harder, sending waves of movement through the water that further unsettled the shark. A collective unease began to swell in the surrounding waters. Leora felt a rush of urgency as the nurse shark, agitated by the commotion, began to approach more assertively. Brout's erratic movements had not only disturbed the shark, but also attracted the attention of a larger, more menacing creature, a bull shark, known for its unpredictable nature and aggressive tendencies. Leora quickly swam to Brout, placing herself between him and the approaching shark. She needed to guide him back to safety while maintaining her composure. The bull shark's presence loomed closer, and she could feel the tension radiating from its powerful body. Leora's mind raced through her training. She needed to calm Brout and signal to the sharks that they were not a threat. With deliberate movements, she turned her body to face the bull shark, presenting her side as a non-threatening gesture. She swam slowly, encouraging Brout to follow her lead. Every inch felt like an eternity as she moved through the water, her senses heightened. She maintained eye contact with the bull shark, deciphering its body language as it circled them. Leora could see the twitch of its tail, the slight shift in its gaze. It was uncertain but intriguing. Brout, however, was not responding as she hoped. The bull shark began to close in, its massive form casting a dark shadow over them. Leora's heart raced as she watched Brout flail again, panic overtaking him. She quickly extended her arm, gesturing for him to stop. She signaled him to breathe deeply, encouraging him to remember the training they had gone through. In the depths of her mind, she recalled her research. The best way to communicate with sharks was through controlled, calm movements. As Brout began to settle, Leora felt a surge of hope. She pushed forward slowly, urging him to mirror her. Together they moved with intention, drifting away from the bull shark while maintaining an awareness of the creatures surrounding them. The nurse shark had also retreated slightly, sensing the change in their behavior. It was a delicate balance, and Leora knew they had to keep moving. Leora directed Brout towards a nearby rock formation where they could find refuge. As they approached, the bull shark circled them again. Its instincts honed in on their movements. Leora's adrenaline surged. She and Brout had to be quick. With a final push, they reached the rocks, which offered a temporary sanctuary. She gestured for Brout to stay still, using her body to shield him from the bull shark's line of sight. The shark, sensing the change, swam cautiously away, now more curious than aggressive. As the water settled, Leora could finally breathe. She took a moment to collect her thoughts. They were safe for now, but the experience had taken a toll on both of them. Once they had regained their composure, Leora began the ascent, guiding Brout up slowly, step by step, away from the potential threat below. They surfaced to the boat where the crew waited anxiously. As they climbed aboard, they realized what they had just experienced, and it hit Leora like a wave. She had not only tested her methods, but had also proven their efficacy in one of the most challenging situations possible. As the sun set over the ocean, casting golden light on the waves, a small research vessel bobbed gently. The crew, a team of 5 marine biologists and ecologists, had spent the day studying bull shark migration and were eager to return to the harbor, unaware of what lay ahead. Kiran, the seasoned leader, Talon, an eager ecology student, Marnie, an animal behavior expert, Lynn, an adventurous diver, and Rika, a meticulous data analyst, had worked hard together to gather valuable data. Their excitement was palpable as they packed up for the day, but just as twilight set in, a violent jolt shook the vessel. A shallow rumble echoed through the hull, and the crew stumbled in alarm. Talon quickly realized the grim truth. The engine had failed. Stranded in waters notorious for aggressive bull sharks, the very creatures they were studying now circled their powerless boat, leaving the team with an uncertain and dangerous night ahead. Panic threatened to seep into their ranks, but Kiran quickly rallied the team. They had come to this place to study the sharks, to understand their behavior, and now they needed to rely on that knowledge to survive. The remote area was known for its sudden weather changes and unpredictable currents. The fading light would soon turn the open water into a vast, dark expanse, and with it came the danger of their new neighbors. Marnie took a deep breath and began scanning the water. The unmistakable dorsal fins of bull sharks sliced through the surface, moving in slow, calculated arcs as if surveying the vessel that intruded upon their territory. They were drawn to the disturbance, intrigued by the sudden presence of humans in their midst. Rika turned to her devices, attempting to send a distress signal, but her attempts were met with a disappointing silence. They were too far from shore, and the emergency beacon had malfunctioned. With the sun dipping below the horizon, darkness enveloped them. The once inviting sea now appeared ominous, an impenetrable black that hinted at lurking dangers beneath. Rika's heart raced as she scanned the perimeter. The water was teeming with the muscular forms of the bull sharks, their predatory instincts aroused by the scent of the boat's engine and the vibrations it had sent through the water. Kiran, sensing the urgency, assigned tasks to each team member. They set to work, hauling the tagging equipment on deck to secure their catch. Lynn and Marnie prepared to enter the water to retrieve the tags they had attached to the sharks earlier, while Kiran and Talon devised a plan to attract the sharks away from the boat. Kiran knew they could not simply wait for rescue. They had to outsmart the creatures, turning the odds in their favor. With the moon casting an eerie glow, Lynn and Marnie donned their diving gear and slipped into the water. The chilling embrace of the ocean enveloped them as they descended. The cold invigorating yet terrifying. They moved with purpose, their flashlights illuminating the dark abyss. Each pulse of their hearts echoed in their ears, a rhythmic reminder of their vulnerability. The water was alive with movement, shadows darting and weaving through the depths. As they maneuvered through the water, they could see the unmistakable shape of a bull shark gliding nearby. Its muscular body was a predator in its element, and they knew they had to be careful. The sharks were instinctively curious, but this curiosity could quickly turn predatory if they felt threatened. Marnie focused on the tags, determined to retrieve the data, while Lynn kept a watchful eye on their surroundings. Back on the boat, Kiran and Talon employed their knowledge of shark behavior. They set up a series of makeshift fishing lines with bait to lure the sharks away. Each time a fin sliced through the water, Kiran felt a jolt of fear mixed with awe. The very animals they had come to study were now a threat. They needed to redirect the sharks' attention, but every splash of water echoed in their minds as a signal of danger. The minutes dragged into hours as the night deepened. The sharks, initially intrigued, began circling the boat more aggressively. Kiran's strategy seemed futile as the creature's predatory instincts kicked in, drawn not just to the bait but to the vessel itself. Talon struggled to focus, her eyes darting to every movement in the water. She felt a knot tightening in her stomach. The predators were becoming bolder, their patience wearing thin. Meanwhile, Lynn and Marnie swam closer to the tags, adrenaline coursing through their veins. They needed to finish quickly. Marnie secured the last tag just as a shadow moved closer. The size of the bull shark sent a shockwave of fear through them. They had to get back to the boat before it became a target. They ascended rapidly, their hearts racing, and broke the surface, gasping for air. But the sight that greeted them was horrifying. Kiran and Talon were struggling against the relentless thrashing of the sharks. Kiran shouted, though no sound carried over the water, as Talon fought to keep a grip on the boat. A bull shark had become entangled in the fishing lines, thrashing violently, causing chaos and drawing its brethren closer. The water erupted in splashes as the team scrambled to regain control. Marnie and Lynn lunged for the boat, their limbs exhausted but fueled by a primal instinct to survive. Once aboard, they formed a tight circle, using their knowledge of shark behavior to stand firm against the frenzy. They threw any remaining bait overboard, trying to divert the sharks' attention. Marnie, thinking quickly, grabbed a bucket of seawater and began splashing it around to create a barrier of sound and movement, hoping to confuse the predators. As the chaos settled, the sharks began to retreat, drawn away by the scent of the bait. The team, hearts pounding, took a moment to breathe. The darkness of the ocean no longer felt like an inescapable void, but rather a vast space filled with living, breathing creatures, each deserving respect and understanding. Hours later, a faint light appeared on the horizon. Kiran and Talon waved flashlights in a rhythmic pattern, their signal for help cutting through the shadows. They had survived the encounter, a testament to their knowledge and teamwork. As the rescue boat approached, the team felt a surge of relief. They would return to shore, carrying with them not just data on shark behavior, but a story of survival and a newfound respect for the creatures they had come to study.